Science is all about facts and logic. It's all about the numbers. It's all about the evidence. And here on the channel, pretty much all the time, I try to focus on the objective evidence. Yeah, even in reviews, now and then we have a subjective taste or like or dislike that will come up, but more often than not, my goal is to help you guys be as informed as possible, which is exactly what science aims to do. And the closest thing when it comes to one of these countdown lists that we can do for objective evidence is base it completely on fan votes. Some weeks, some topics, we don't get as many as we would like to have in our random sampling. But then some weeks, like this one, we get a ton of votes. We have a very healthy random sampling this time of about 1,050-ish votes, so a pretty decent smattering overall that will help us determine the top 10 Transformers scientists. That's going to be our focus this time around in the latest GotBot Counts Down. Hey one, hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, man, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe, and while you're at it, light them up, baby. Hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton and it lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all of my social media links, all of that in the description down below. Also in the description down below, and if you are in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link, check us out on Patreon, see what we have to offer to you through spring, or of course, please hit the join button at any given time and become a channel member. And this is, as voted on by fans, the most objective way that we can do these lists, the top 10 Transformer scientists. This was a very interesting one. I didn't know if it was going to catch on with fans, but the voting was kind of bonkers with it, insofar as we had a lot of characters get votes that I never really would have thought of. Our honorable mention is but one this time, and our honorable mention goes to Alpha Trion. Very interesting honorable mention that I wouldn't really have thought was a scientist per se. However, the justification that voters gave for him was, well, you know, he did have enough science and engineering background that he was able to rebuild Elita into, or rebuild Ariel into Elita, rebuild Orion into Optimus. I think there's an argument as to whether, you know, he's more like field medic or scientist, engineer, or physicist, I suppose. I think some of it is a little debatable. Medical science, you know, I guess some of it is a little bit debatable. But nevertheless, he had enough votes to be an honorable mention. Certainly didn't make the list, so who did? Well, you know what we're going to do. We're going to kick things off, as we always do, with number 10 first. Coming in at number 10 is the Autobots' resident naturalist and geologist by way of Beachcomber. Beachcomber is a naturalist and his specialty is geology. He has a number of tools that can help him with this, including various sensors, like he has magnetic sensors, seismic sensors, sonic sensors, and infrared sensors. He also has his sonic pick that's able to basically pick through any rock. He finds a lot of different mineral deposits. He'll find a lot of things that are natural discoveries within the earth, and he has determined that exploring the Earth is kind of amazing. I mean, he already knew the geology and the natural science of Cybertron. This is a whole new world, a beautiful world for him to discover. And he will often keep his discoveries to himself to ensure that they don't fall into the hands of the Decepticons. A true scientist trying to protect his discoveries. How can you discount it? Beachcomber takes the number 10 slot. So I thought number 9 was actually a very interesting one. Possibly a little bit debatable by way of Knockout. And some people would say, Knockout? Yeah, but he's a medic. That's not a scientist. Well, it's a little deeper than that. If we follow some of the kind of comic book fiction for Knockout as well, he's not only a medic, but he becomes a very skilled cosmetic surgeon, learning a lot of medical sciences, right? Scientist. He also tends to assist and aid. I don't want to necessarily say collaborate because of the ego of the other character, but certainly assist and help shape, mold a lot of the projects undertaken by Shockwave. And I think most people would say that Shockwave most definitely is a scientist. So whether he is deemed as a medical scientist or a scientist's assistant, either way, he's in the scientific fields, and enough fans felt the same way that Knockout was able to take the number 9 slot. Now, number 8 may be one of the cruelest, most tyrannical scientists on the list by way of G-Axis. And G-Axis is arguably seen more as a warlord than anything, but his scientific prowess and ability is second to none. Whether he's using his expertise to mechaform a planet as his kind of new homeworld, which he dubs Planet X, or doing something as sinister as downloading and manipulating the knowledge of the underbase, so much so that he started to delete memories and manipulate the mindset and the psychology of other bots, or kind of figuring out how the whole budding system works, which he was born from, and kind of moving past it and manipulating that as well. Basically, if it's scientific and it can be used for nefarious purpose to manipulate and gain control, the character of G-Axis, who reached the sinister rank of Liege Centuro via Liege Maximo himself, yeah, he's a dangerous dude, he's a knowledgeable dude. He will take the facts, take the knowledge, take the logic, and twist it for his own machinations. As sinister as it might be, we can't deny the knowledge base and the scientific prowess that G-Axis has, and for that reason, he takes the number 8 slot. Now, number 7, in any and all continuities, is definitely one of the most renowned of Transformer scientists, and it's Skyfire, or Jetfire, whichever name it is that you prefer. Yeah, this is the old generations one. How often do we get to break this one out? So, if we go back to G1, he and Starscream are very much masters of engineering and physics, so much so that Skyfire's own body is like a testament to the science that he studies, and it is right up to date all the time with the most latest cutting edge technology. If we go to something like the IDW universe, there's a whole thing there about class structure, but basically he ends up becoming a forensic scientist and comes up with the whole, I can't remember what it's called now, polydermal grafting technique, where he's able to actually use it to make his assistant Doc to shatter glass, where he and Starscream are seeking funding so that they're able to explore and possibly reawaken Metroplex. Any and all scientists, any and all sciences apply to this guy, so much so that his mind is deemed one of the greatest scientific minds in all of Cybertron. And you know what? He has the lineage, and he has the discoveries, and he has the credentials to back it up, whatever the continuity or universe is. Skyfire, he takes the number 7 slot. Okay, now the character at number 6 is going to be really, really unexpected on this list, but hear me out because it's Grimlock. Yes, number 6 is Grimlock, but for a few reasons, shockingly so. A lot of people that voted for Grimlock said, look, he was really, really intelligent for that one day, that one episode, that one era, and in that limited time, he was able to correct Perceptor on something that Perceptor was incorrect about. He was able to create Computron, all of the Technobots, and make them intelligent enough to be able to compute really anything, because Computron is pretty much has a limitless knowledge capacity thanks to Grimlock. And some people said even when he's a little more of a dimwit, not the sharpest knife in the drawer, that even then you could say he is a brilliant scientist, because it was all thanks to Grimlock that Tordon didn't destroy the entire rest of the universe. The genius Primacron couldn't even figure out how to stop the energy monster from devouring worlds until Grimlock came up with the idea, hey, why don't you just flick the reverse switch? And lo and behold, it worked. The brilliant Grimlock, one of the greatest Cybertronian scientists? I don't know about that, but he certainly did enough in his short time with a scientific mind that fans remember it, and he was able to take the number 6 slot. And here we are at the most coveted and most nefarious, in this case, of locations, the halfway mark. And at the halfway mark, we delve into Beast Wars and Tarantulas, the Predacon's resident mad scientist. He loves to do his peculiar and odd experiments on living organisms, and you know what, if it fails, he'll just eat them, because he's also a cannibal. A cannibalistic scientist who's also a secret agent of the Tripredicus Council, really working toward the destruction of the Vok, as well as a scenario where neither the Autobots or the Decepticons ever won the Great War. A very deep and complex character, obviously suffering from a number of mental illnesses, but also full of a lot of biological and chemical knowledge. So he's a chemist, he's a biologist, who loves to kind of just try out weird experiments. If they work, they work. If they fail, they fail. At the end of the day, if you end up on his operating table, things aren't going to go well. And in the best case scenario, you're going to become his meal. The sadistic, the dangerous, and the brilliant Tarantulas takes the number 5 slot. Number 4 sort of takes us to season 4 of Transformers outside of Japan, or I guess the Headmaster series by way of Brainstorm. And whether we want to talk about him as the creator of my first blaster in the IDW comics, or any of the other things he did there, whether we want to talk about him in reference to the advancement of Headmaster and Target Master technology, Brainstorm has somewhat of a limited history in the fiction, certainly in the cartoon, but what he did do and what he did have in the role he did have really helped to solidify him as one of the Autobots' main scientists. Certainly fleshed out better in the comic, though probably a bit misguided in some of his motivations. Nevertheless, you can't deny the discoveries and the impact he made long lasting, whether it's in cartoon form or whether it's in comic book form. Brainstorm, one of the greatest Autobot minds, and he takes the number 4 slot. Number 3 is one of the most intelligent of all Cybertronians by way of Perceptor. That's right, Perceptor. I mean, perhaps his greatest accomplishment was Chronostop, to stop the spread of the Rust Plague, or Rust Virus, or Cosmic Rust, or whatever it is you want to call it. Cosmic Rust, I think, is the official name. He is a scientist through and through. I mean, so much so that the dude turns into a microscope, right? What he's able to perceive with his microscope, both up close and in the interstellar reaches of space, is nothing short of astonishing. A master of all scientific fields, from chemistry to biology to physics and then some. He is the living embodiment of what science is, and focused squarely on the advancement of knowledge, the advancement of logic. How can you argue with Perceptor appearing on this list? And the fans felt that he was one of the best scientists in all of Cybertron, that he was able to take the number 3 slot. But do you know who just ekes out slightly higher than one of the most intelligent of all Transformers? One of the craziest of all Transformers, with Wheeljack. Obviously a creator, an inventor, an engineer, right? That's the science that he's really focused in, the physics, right? I mean, take your pick of anything he created. I mean, he created, or at least in part, created the Dinobots. And we already saw Grimlock on this list. So by association, I guess he sort of created the Technobots, and he sort of helped to ensure that Tordron would be stopped. Because, you know, that's the thing Grimlock did. Grimlock was created by Wheeljack, at least in part with the help of Ratchet. You get where I'm going here, right? Then we have the immobilizer device. We have any number of devices that this guy has created across numerous continuities. He and Perceptor were also key in the, I guess, development of a new body for God Ginrai when he became Victory Leo. So, yeah, I know, he was taken out in the 86 film. I like to believe he wasn't. He's alive and kicking much, much later, along with Perceptor, and of course Wheeljack's my boy. The mad scientist engineer who's always got some gimmicks, trinkets, and creations in the works. That's Wheeljack, and he takes the number 2 slot. And here we are at number 1. And I don't think number 1 is going to be too much of a shock, but boy does he deserve it. And to be fair, for a long time, a few people guessed number 1 early on. before I had the votes counted. And at the time, he was not number one. He was not in the running for number one. But he certainly made a good push later on because, of course, I amassed votes from multiple areas. And he did manage to cinch the top spot, and it's Shockwave. Now, to be fair, the votes were really split between the G1 Shockwave, certainly the comics version of G1 Shockwave. I mean, you know, you look at things like Dark Cybertron, right? You look at a number of things he did in the G1 comic. And yeah, he was a maniacal, I can't even say maniacal, he was a logical, but at the same time devoid of any sense of emotion, devoid of any sense of regret, devoid of any sense of morality. But he done things for the pursuit of knowledge, and whatever the consequences, so what? As long as we get the knowledge and I get what I want. He didn't always get what he wanted, of course. But the other part of the votes, the bigger part of the votes, the lion's share part of the votes for Shockwave, though this is the Siege version I'm holding, was really for the Transformers Prime version. If we could take the very tippy top and divide it up into sections, even though this is Siege Shockwave, then really G1 would, G1 comic would be like slightly below Transformers Prime. Transformers Prime was the very tippy top. And how can you argue with it? I mean, the complete reanimation of the Predacons, the cloning process of the Predacons, was all due to Transformers Prime Shockwave. Predaking from Transformers Prime and his Predacons really wouldn't exist in the modern era if it wasn't for Shockwave. Hard to argue with not being one of the top scientists when you literally revive an extinct species. For that reason, and so many more of his very dangerous machinations, Shockwave takes the #1 slot. And that's 10 down to 1 once again. Who else had some votes here? The Quintesson judge had some votes, which I found strange, but the argument was used that it was a judge that revived Optimus Prime, the Quintesson scientist, of course. Rhinox, I thought that was a good one. Sunder was a good one. Not Unicron Trilogy, RID Red Alert, Computron, Action Master Rad. Man, oh man, as well as Action Master Mainframe, who's an actual computer, which, I'm just saying, computer science. Just throwing it out there. Prime Ratchet specifically had some votes. G1 Ratchet had a couple of votes. Dr. Archiville, who certainly was a scientist. Scorponok, Starscream, pre-Decepticon, pre-Air Commander. Rung, of course, in the psychological sciences. Shattered Glass Starscream, Nightshade, and just for good measure, and I love this one, the creator of an entire species, that being the Quintessons, Quintus Prime himself. That and more had votes. Let me know if your favorites made the list. I appreciate you guys coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon, see what we have to offer to you through spring. Or of course, hit the join button at any given time and become a channel member, please, and thank you. While you're at it, please hit the subscribe button, stick around, have some fun with us here on the channel, and don't forget that somehow, some way, each and every single solitary day, you right there, you do make a difference in the world, and I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit either in the live streams on Thursday nights, at the stop motion premieres, or the old-fashioned way right here, inside the videos.